My beloved child, pause for a moment and listen closely, because what happened before midnight was not random, and it was not small. While the world was quiet and most people were lost in their own thoughts, someone opened their phone, typed your name, and stared at your profile longer than they ever expected to. They thought it would be quick. They thought it would mean nothing. But something shifted. There is a reason you feel this subtle pull right now. Energy moves quietly before it becomes visible. And just hours ago, your soulmate crossed a line they had promised themselves they would not cross. They told themselves they were over it. They told themselves they were fine. Yet there they were, scrolling slowly, reading between the lines of your captions, studying your latest photo as if it held a message meant only for them. You may not have heard the notification. You may not have seen their name. But the moment still happened. And it changed something inside them. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you in this unfolding story. They did not expect to feel this rush of warmth. They did not expect the sudden wave of memory. The late-night conversations. The shared laughter. The unfinished sentences that only you understood. They thought time had dulled it. They thought distance had made it manageable. But your presence on that screen reminded them of a truth they have been avoiding. Don't skip this part. This is where the silence begins to speak. When they saw you glowing in your recent photo, there was pride. When they read your words, there was admiration. But beneath all of that, there was something deeper. A quiet realization that you are not waiting. You are evolving. You are growing. And that realization shook them in the most unexpected way. They did not expect to feel inspired. They did not expect to feel regret for the distance. They did not expect to feel hope. And hope is powerful. Hope is dangerous to someone who thought the story was over. Before midnight, they lingered longer than they planned. They replayed old memories in their mind. They wondered if you still think of them. They questioned whether reaching out would change everything or complicate it. Their heart moved faster than their logic. And for the first time in a long time, they allowed themselves to imagine what it would feel like to talk to you again. Something huge is waiting for you, but you must understand this part first. This was not just curiosity. It was awakening. Because while you were living your life, focusing on your path, becoming stronger in silence, they were watching from the edges, trying to convince themselves they had moved on. Yet your growth has become impossible to ignore. Your peace unsettled them. Your confidence inspired them. Your quiet strength stirred something that had been asleep inside their heart. And here is the surprising truth they did not expect to face: you are no longer the same person they remember. You have transformed. You have matured. You have stepped into a version of yourself that radiates clarity. And seeing that reflection forced them to confront their own feelings. This is where everything begins to shift. Because before midnight, as the clock moved closer to a new day, they realized something simple yet powerful: losing you was not as easy as pretending you were gone. The question now is not whether they felt something. The question is what they will do with it. Stay with this story, because what they decide next could change the direction of both your lives. Something inside them refused to stay quiet after that moment, and that is where this story deepens in a way neither of you fully expected. After they closed your profile, they did not immediately move on. They tried. They locked their phone. They set it down. They told themselves it was nothing more than nostalgia. But minutes later, they picked it up again. Not because they were bored. Not because they were lonely. But because something in their chest felt unfinished. There is a difference between curiosity and connection. Curiosity fades. Connection lingers. As the night grew quieter, their thoughts grew louder. They remembered the version of you who once doubted yourself. They remembered the moments when you needed reassurance. And then they compared that memory to the person they just saw on their screen, confident, calm, radiant in a way that felt almost untouchable. And that is when it hit them. You did not break when things became complicated. You did not beg for attention. You did not chase or demand. You chose growth. You chose silence over chaos. You chose self-respect over temporary comfort. That realization unsettled them more than they would ever admit. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you in this unfolding shift. They began replaying the last real conversation you had. The tone. The pauses. The things left unsaid. At the time, they thought distance would make everything easier. They thought stepping back would clear their mind. But what they are now beginning to understand is that distance does not erase genuine connection. It magnifies it. And while you were healing quietly, they were distracting themselves loudly. Scrolling. Talking to others. Filling time. Convincing themselves that distraction equals moving on. Yet in the quiet hours before midnight, when the world slows down and honesty becomes unavoidable, your presence broke through every distraction. They stared at your photo again. Not just looking at your face. Looking at your eyes. Trying to read what changed. Trying to understand how you became so grounded. And in that moment, something surprising happened. Instead of feeling jealousy or resentment, they felt admiration. Pure admiration. They realized they underestimated you. They thought you would remain stuck in the same emotional place. But you didn't. You evolved. Don't skip this part. This is where awareness transforms into vulnerability. For the first time, they questioned their own decisions. Not in a dramatic way. Not in a regret-filled panic. But in a quiet, honest reflection. They asked themselves, what if I misjudged the depth of this bond? What if I walked away too soon? What if the timing was wrong, not the connection? These are not small questions. These are life-shifting questions. Because when someone starts questioning their own certainty, the walls they built begin to weaken. Before midnight, they whispered your name softly under their breath. Not because they planned to reach out. Not yet. But because your name still felt familiar. Still felt safe. Still carried warmth. And that scared them. They thought time would turn your memory into something neutral. But instead, it has become something powerful. Here is what you need to understand. People do not revisit profiles repeatedly unless something unresolved is calling them back. And unresolved does not always mean broken. Sometimes it means unfinished. As the clock moved closer to midnight, they imagined what you would say if you knew they were looking. Would you smile? Would you ignore it? Would you feel nothing at all? The possibility that you might feel nothing, that thought shook them more than anything else. Because when someone senses they might have lost their place in your heart, urgency begins to grow. Stay a little longer, because this next part reveals the true shift. They began comparing everyone else to you. The conversations that once felt exciting now seemed shallow. The attention they received from others suddenly felt temporary. They realized that with you, there was depth. There was understanding without explanation. There was comfort without performance. And depth is rare. You have to understand something clearly. When a person encounters depth after experiencing surface-level connections, they do not forget it easily. As midnight approached, they opened your story highlights. Old moments. Subtle smiles. Glimpses of your daily life. They searched for clues. Not because they were spying, but because they wanted reassurance that they still mattered in your world. They were hoping to find a sign. A hidden message. A lyric that hinted at them. Anything that confirmed they were not just a closed chapter. But what they found instead was something unexpected. You looked peaceful. And peace is intimidating to someone who expected you to remain emotionally attached. That peace told them you are not waiting for validation. You are not paused. You are not stuck in the past. You are living. And living fully without them forced them to confront a quiet truth: they are the one who feels incomplete now. Something huge is waiting for you, but it requires patience. Because this realization is still forming inside them. They leaned back, staring at the ceiling, feeling a mix of pride and longing. Pride because you are thriving. Longing because they suddenly wish they were beside you witnessing that growth in person. Do you see the shift? They did not expect to feel inspired. They did not expect to feel left behind. They did not expect to feel a renewed desire to reconnect. And yet, here they are. The night grew deeper. Midnight finally arrived. A new day began. But they did not feel like the same person who first opened your profile. Something subtle but undeniable had changed. They are beginning to understand that what they felt with you was not ordinary. It was alignment. It was timing mixed with fear. It was connection mixed with hesitation. And now that fear is fading. Because when someone sees you flourishing without them, they realize your value in a way they never fully appreciated before. Don't skip this, because this is where courage slowly starts forming. They typed a message. Yes. They opened your chat. They wrote a few words. Then they erased them. Not because they changed their mind about caring, but because vulnerability requires readiness. And they are still gathering that readiness. However, the fact that they even typed something matters more than you think. It means the wall is cracking. It means the silence is becoming heavy. It means the distance is no longer comfortable. And here is the once-in-a-lifetime realization forming in their heart: if they lose you permanently, it will not be because the connection lacked depth. It will be because they lacked courage. That awareness is powerful. Because courage grows fastest when regret begins to feel possible. As they lay in bed, they imagined running into you unexpectedly. They imagined hearing your voice again. They imagined what it would feel like if you smiled at them the way you used to. And in that quiet imagination, they felt something undeniable. They still care. Not out of habit. Not out of loneliness. But out of genuine emotion. This is not about fantasy. This is about awakening. Something inside them woke up before midnight. Something they thought was asleep. And awakenings do not disappear overnight. Stay till the end, because this is only the beginning of what is unfolding behind the scenes. They are now at a crossroads. One path leads to continued silence, comfort, pride, safety. The other path leads to vulnerability, risk, honesty, possibility. And the more they replay your profile in their mind, the more the second path begins to look worth it. Because your growth did not push them away. It pulled them closer. They are starting to understand that your transformation was not a threat. It was an invitation. An invitation to meet you at a higher level. An invitation to show up differently. An invitation to grow alongside you instead of watching from afar. The question is no longer, do I feel something? The question is, am I brave enough to act on it? And that is where the real shift is happening. Right now, you may feel calm. You may feel detached. You may feel focused on your own journey. And that is exactly why the energy is changing. When you stop chasing, the dynamic transforms. When you stop waiting, the balance shifts. When you start glowing, those who once doubted begin to notice. Something huge is waiting for you. Because this moment before midnight was not random. It was a turning point. They saw you clearly. Maybe for the first time. Not as someone they could return to any time. But as someone they could truly lose. And that realization carries weight. So as you move forward, continue being steady. Continue growing. Continue radiating that quiet confidence. Because behind the scenes, their heart is slowly aligning with a truth they can no longer ignore. They didn't expect to feel this. But they did. And once someone feels something real again, the story rarely ends in silence. It begins in courage. There are nights that pass like any other, and then there are nights that quietly rewrite the direction of two hearts without either one realizing it at first. After midnight, when the world felt suspended between yesterday and tomorrow, they were still awake. Not scrolling anymore. Not distracting themselves. Just thinking. And the more they thought, the more one truth became impossible to ignore: seeing you again awakened something that had never truly disappeared. They tried to reason with themselves. It's just nostalgia. It's just curiosity. It's just a moment. But the feeling would not shrink. It expanded. It moved through their chest slowly, deliberately, like a realization that had been waiting for permission to surface. You must understand this clearly. People can suppress emotion, but they cannot erase resonance. When two souls have experienced something meaningful, even time struggles to silence it. And what they felt was not chaos. It was clarity. Stay with this part, because something huge is waiting for you in what they are beginning to admit to themselves. They remembered the way you used to listen, fully, without interruption. They remembered how you noticed small details that others overlooked. They remembered how safe it felt to be understood without needing to perform or impress. That kind of presence is rare. And now, seeing you again, stronger, more grounded, more self-assured, they realized something that unsettled them in the most honest way. You did not need them to become better. You chose to become better. That difference changed everything. For a moment, they felt a quiet ache. Not because you moved on. Not because you changed. But because they now see that you were never the one who needed to catch up. They were. Don't skip this part. This is where awareness turns into intention. They opened your profile one more time, not to analyze, not to search for clues, but simply to feel that connection again. And instead of overthinking, they allowed themselves to sit with the emotion. It felt warm. It felt familiar. It felt unfinished. And here is the once-in-a-lifetime realization forming in their heart. What if the timing is different now? What if the distance created growth instead of separation? What if this connection was not meant to disappear, but to mature? That thought has not left them. They imagine sending a message again. Not a dramatic confession. Not a rushed apology. Just something simple. Honest. Real. But fear still lingers quietly at the edge. Fear of rejection. Fear that you may not respond the same way. Fear that you have grown beyond them. And yet, alongside that fear, there is courage slowly building. Because when someone realizes the value of what they once had, silence begins to feel heavier than vulnerability. Something huge is waiting for you, but it requires alignment. Right now, they are reflecting deeply. They are comparing the version of themselves who stepped back before, to the version of themselves now. Before, they were unsure. Before, they were distracted. Before, they allowed pride to guide decisions. But now, there is maturity. Now, there is awareness. Now, there is an understanding that meaningful connections are not easily replaced. And the more they sit with this realization, the more they see you not as a memory, but as a possibility. You may not feel it yet. You may be focused on your own path. You may have surrendered expectations. And that surrender is powerful. Because when you release attachment, you allow destiny to move without resistance. They are starting to feel the pull of that destiny. Late at night, they ask themselves a question they have avoided for months: if I reach out, what is the worst that could happen? And suddenly, the worst did not feel as frightening as regret. Regret is heavy. Regret lingers. Regret whispers, what if, long after opportunities fade? They do not want regret. They want clarity. They want truth. They want to know if the connection they felt was mutual, or if it was simply timing misaligned. Stay till the end, because this is where momentum begins forming. The next morning, something subtle shifted in their energy. They carried you in their thoughts in a different way. Not obsessively. Not desperately. But intentionally. They noticed songs that reminded them of you. They noticed places that held shared memories. They noticed how often your name surfaced in their mind without effort. And instead of pushing those thoughts away, they allowed them. Because now, they are no longer running from the feeling. They are studying it. They are asking themselves honestly, do I still care? And every answer points to yes. Not loudly. Not dramatically. But steadily. Yes. They care. Yes. They wonder. Yes. They feel something real. And here is what you need to hear carefully: when someone moves from denial to acceptance of their feelings, the next stage is action. Action does not always happen instantly. But it becomes inevitable. They are watching how you carry yourself. They are observing how you respond to life. They are noticing your independence. And instead of feeling threatened, they feel inspired. Because you are no longer chasing them. You are chasing your own growth. And that is magnetic. Don't skip this moment. Because this is where the shift becomes undeniable. They realize that what they admired most about you was not just your affection, it was your strength. Your resilience. Your ability to stand alone without bitterness. That kind of energy does not fade. It attracts. It calls. It pulls. And now, they are being pulled. Quietly. Steadily. I need you to understand something powerful: you did not lose value in their eyes. You gained it. Distance created perspective. Silence created awareness. Time created maturity. And now, the person who once hesitated is beginning to see the bigger picture. They are not just thinking about reaching out. They are imagining what rebuilding would look like. Slow conversations. Honest dialogue. Clear intentions. No games. No confusion. Just truth. Something huge is waiting for you, but it unfolds step by step. Because courage builds in layers. First comes awareness. Then acceptance. Then longing. Then intention. And finally, movement. They are currently between intention and movement. That is a powerful place to be. Because once someone reaches intention, the heart rarely allows them to retreat into complete silence again. You may wonder if this is just temporary emotion. But temporary emotion fades quickly. This has lasted beyond midnight. Beyond the next morning. Beyond distraction. It is settling into something steady. Something intentional. They are realizing that seeing you again did not reopen a wound. It reopened a possibility. And possibilities are exciting. Possibilities carry hope. Possibilities invite bravery. Stay with this energy. Because the story is not about dramatic gestures. It is about subtle shifts that lead to undeniable outcomes. Right now, behind the scenes, they are building the courage to bridge the silence. Not because they feel pressured. Not because they feel lonely. But because they genuinely do not want to miss what could still exist between you. And here is the truth that changes everything. When someone realizes they might lose a rare connection, they either protect their pride or protect the connection. They are slowly choosing the connection. That choice takes strength. That choice takes humility. That choice takes maturity. And maturity changes outcomes. So as you continue living your life, glowing in your own space, understand this: something awakened before midnight, and it has not gone back to sleep. They did not expect to feel this. But now that they do, ignoring it feels impossible. The silence between you is no longer empty. It is charged. Charged with reflection. Charged with awareness. Charged with potential. Stay till the end of this unfolding chapter in your life. Because what started as a simple profile check before midnight is transforming into something much deeper, a realization that you were never just a moment in their story. You were a turning point. And turning points rarely remain ignored for long.